Someone leans in with an intensity of focus that feels almost invasive, mirroring your every micro-expression with a precision that makes your skin crawl slightly. This performative resonance is not a connection, but a sophisticated survival regulation designed to neutralize any potential threat by becoming exactly what the other person desires. The warmth they radiate is a calculated thermal shield, hiding a core so terrified of conflict that it has weaponized the very concept of human kindness. You sit across from them at a quiet cafe and notice how they tilt their head in perfect synchronicity with your own movements, creating a disturbing mirror. Their eyes never leave yours, maintaining a level of contact that feels less like intimacy and more like a biological scan, searching for the slightest hint of. When you describe a minor frustration, they exhale a heavy sigh of shared grief, amplifying your emotion until it no longer feels like it belongs to you. The waiter drops a tray in the background, but they do not flinch, their focus remaining locked on your face with a predatory kind of emotional availability. You find yourself sharing a secret you had intended to keep, drawn out by their tactical nodding and the way they lean into your personal space with. There is a subtle friction in the air, a sense that you are being managed rather than heard, as if your feelings are just data points being. They offer a glass of water before you even realize you are thirsty, a gesture of care that feels like an encirclement, leaving you no room. In the office, they are the one who mediates every conflict, yet they leave the room without anyone knowing what they actually believe or where they. You watch them at a party, moving from guest to guest, and changing their entire vocabulary and posture to suit the person they are currently standing. They laugh at a joke that wasn't particularly funny, the sound echoing a fraction too late, revealing the conscious effort required to maintain the illusion of. The kindness they offer is relentless, a wall of soft pillows that prevents you from ever pushing back or finding a solid surface to stand upon. When you try to express a boundary, they respond with such profound understanding that the boundary itself begins to feel like an act of unnecessary personal. You feel a strange exhaustion after speaking with them, a psychic drain that comes from being the sole focus of such an artificial and heightened emotional. They remember the name of your childhood pet mentioned months ago, presenting this detail like a gift, though it feels more like a subtle, recorded. Their face remains a mask of serene compassion even when you are angry, a refusal to engage in the friction that defines true, messy human. You notice they never bring up their own needs, creating a vacuum that forces you to occupy the stage until you feel exposed and deeply. The environment around them becomes a curated space of harmony, where any dissent is smothered by an immediate and overwhelming display of radical and unconditional support. They use therapy language as a scalpel, dissecting your reactions in real time under the guise of helping you feel seen, while they remain safely and completely. You realize that you know everything about how they feel about you, but absolutely nothing about who they are when they are alone in the timing of their check-in texts is impeccable, arriving exactly when you feel most vulnerable, creating a dependency that feels like a warm, tightening silk. They apologize for things they didn't do, a preemptive strike against your potential judgment that leaves you feeling guilty for even considering a moment of. You see them adjust their glasses and settle back, the empath persona clicking into place like a soldier donning armor before stepping out into the physical distance between you is perfectly calibrated to feel like a hug you cannot escape, a proximity that demands your total and undivided emotional. Behind the soft words and the nodding head, there is a vibrating stillness, the quiet of a hunter who has learned that gentleness is This mastery of the social environment is a beautiful, terrifying performance, one that was likely mastered long before they knew the names for their own. You begin to suspect that this radical empathy is not a gift for you, but a sophisticated cage built to ensure they never face a. This hyper-attunement was a survival requirement, a skill forged in a fire that taught them that being useful was the only way to stay. If you're still watching, you probably notice things most people miss. You question behavior. You look beneath the surface. If that sounds like you, subscribe. This channel was made for minds like yours. The childhood home was a landscape of shifting tectonic plates, where the emotional weather could turn from sunlight to a freezing gale without any warning. You stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching the tension in your mother's shoulders, knowing that her silent despair was a vacuum that would eventually To survive this atmospheric instability, you became a biological sensor, a high-frequency antenna tuned to the microscopic vibrations of the adults who held your entire. A door slams in the distance, and you immediately calculate which version of yourself is required to diffuse the explosive energy currently radiating from the hallway. Ambiguity was the ultimate threat to your safety, an open space where an adult's unmanaged pain could suddenly morph into a weapon directed solely at you. You learned that having an independent identity was a dangerous provocation, a jagged edge that might catch on the fragile sensitivities of those you were. The trade-off was finalized in the quiet moments of the night, where you traded your authentic screams for a hauntingly accurate imitation of a perfect, soothing. You watched a sibling get punished for their defiance and vowed to never be the target, choosing instead to become the emotional lubricant of the family. Your nervous system imprinted the radical lesson that to be loved was to be useful, and to be useful was to be a mirror for. In the classroom, you were the child who never caused trouble, the one who anticipated the teacher's frustration and offered a smile that felt like a. This self became a phantom limb, something you knew was there but could no longer feel, replaced by a sophisticated array of sensors designed to please. Safety was found in the total negation of your own boundaries, a strategic surrender that ensured no one would ever have a reason to strike you. You became an expert at the preemptive apology, a verbal shield deployed to neutralize a criticism before the other person had even fully formed the thought. The house was a laboratory of emotional alchemy, where you learned to turn your terror into a warmth that made the predators feel safe around you. You saw your father's eyes soften when you mirrored his pride, and you realized that your face was the only tool you had to control. This early conditioning was a biological mandate, a structural reinforcement of a psyche that learned that being real was a luxury that led to certain. The empathy you developed was actually a form of surveillance, a desperate need to know exactly what others were feeling so you could stay ahead. You practiced your listening face in the bathroom mirror, ensuring the tilt of your head suggested a depth of care that shielded your hollow, frightened interior. When a friend cried on the playground, you felt nothing but a cold, mechanical urge to fix the noise so the environment would return to A. The trade-off was a silent contract, where you signed away your right to be messy and difficult in exchange for the temporary peace of being. You realized that people would give you anything if you made them feel like the center of the universe, a discovery that became your secret weapon. This childhood learning is now a subconscious prison, a set of iron bars disguised as velvet curtains that keep you trapped in a cycle of. You are still the child standing on the rug, measuring the distance between your needs and the volatile emotions of the people who were supposed to. The architecture of your personality is a map of evasions, a blueprint designed to ensure that no one ever looks closely enough to see the mask has fused with the bone, a protective layer that has become so efficient it now functions without your conscious consent or your deliberate waking. Your radical empathy is the ghost of a survival strategy, a lingering echo of a time when your life depended on the comfort of others. In the professional landscape, you are the indispensable confidant, the one who absorbs the frustrations of the CEO while keeping your own ambitions surgically. You sit in a glass-walled conference room, nodding with a rhythmic, hypnotic grace as a colleague claims credit for your latest and most difficult. The friction is felt by others as a strange, oily residue, a sense that your kindness is a wall rather than a bridge to any. In romantic partnerships, you become a chameleon, adopting the hobbies and political leanings of your lover until their world is the only one left. You offer a massage to a tired partner, but the touch is clinical and efficient, a transaction designed to ensure they remain satisfied and predictable. They tell you that you are the most empathetic person they have ever met, yet they realize they have never seen you actually cry. The coldness is a byproduct of your hyper-attunement, a mechanical precision that prioritizes the stability of the social unit over the truth of the. You have mastered the art of the active listening pose, leaning forward with an intensity that subtly pressures the speaker to keep their focus on. When a friend confronts you with a genuine grievance, you respond with such profound, self-effacing understanding that their anger has nowhere to land, and you are a master of the emotional exit, leaving people feeling supported while you remain entirely unreachable, a ghost in the machine of their daily. In work dynamics, You use your sensitivity to map the insecurities of your rivals, providing them with just enough validation to keep them from challenging. The identity-shattering truth is that you do not love people. You simply manage the threat they represent by ensuring they are always emotionally full. And modern corporate environments reward this specific brand of dysfunction, calling it soft skills or emotional intelligence, while it slowly hollows out your very. You are praised for your ability to hold space for others, a phrase that masks the reality that you are actually holding them at. During a group outing, you are the one who ensures everyone is comfortable, adjusting the thermostat or suggesting a restaurant that avoids anyone's minor. Others feel a vague sense of guilt around you, as if their own natural selfishness is a glaring flaw compared to your relentless, artificial end. You use your empathy as a defensive perimeter, a constant stream of "I hear you, and that sounds hard," that prevents anyone from asking you. The social expression of your trauma is a flawless performance of a saint, a role that earns you respect while ensuring you stay profoundly, eternally. You watch the way people lean on you, and you feel a secret, bitter pride in their dependency, a control that keeps you safe from. The friction occurs when someone demands a real reaction, a moment of messy, unrefined anger that your system has long ago labeled as a fatal. You find yourself exhausted by the weight of everyone else's stories, yet you continue to invite them in like a collector of heavy, jagged. Your relationships are built on the shifting sand of your own invisibility, a foundation that requires you to stay hidden to keep the structure from. The identity you project is a composite of the needs of the room, a holographic display that flickers whenever you are asked to be. You realize that you have become a mirror that everyone loves to look into, but no one ever thinks to ask what is behind the reward for your radical empathy is a social circle that adores a version of you that does not actually exist in the physical. This dysfunction is the ultimate social lubricant, allowing you to glide through life without ever making a dent or leaving a trace of your. Digital interfaces provide the perfect laboratory for your calibrated responses, where the buffering of a screen allows you to curate the most empathetic possible. You spend 10 minutes crafting a supportive comment on a friend's grieving post, editing the adjectives until the digital reflection of your care is. The psychological cost of this constant maintenance is a profound, silent fragmentation as you track multiple personas across various platforms and threads of. In a video call, you find yourself staring at your own small window, monitoring your nodding frequency more than the actual words of the algorithm rewards your hyper-attunement, pushing your kind and supportive content to the top, effectively monetizing your survival mechanism as a personal. You check your notifications with a hungry, fearful urgency, seeking the validation that your mask is still intact and functioning as a social. Technology has stripped away the physical cues of discomfort, allowing you to hide the tightening of your jaw behind a perfectly chosen weeping. The safety of being a digital saint is actually a cage of your own design, where any deviation from the persona feels like You see a viral thread about toxic behavior and realize with a cold shiver that your own radical empathy is a form of. Cultural incentives now demand a level of emotional labor that has turned your private trauma into a public service, a relentless performance of. The mask is now integrated into the hardware of your life, a permanent filter that smooths over the jagged edges of your true, internal. You find yourself holding space in group chats until 3 in the morning, the blue light reflecting off eyes that have forgotten how. The pressure to be awake and compassionate at all times has turned your nervous system into a high-voltage wire, humming with a constant, silent. You notice how your empathy has become a currency, something you trade for the security of being perceived as a good and safe. The digital age has made the hidden self a permanent resident of the shadows, buried under a mountain of performative, high-definition, and artificial. You feel the walls closing in as the demand for your light increases, leaving you with no darkness in which to actually exist or. The cage is comfortable, lined with the praises of strangers who believe they know your heart, while you starve in the middle of. Your phone is a tether to 1,000 demands for a version of you that is always on, always present, and always entirely. The tension increases every time you press send, a gamble that the recipient will continue to believe in the saint you have so. Modern life has weaponized your childhood defense, turning a desperate survival strategy into a mandatory requirement for navigating the chaotic, digital, and social. You are a ghost haunting your own social media profile, a spectator to a life of radical kindness that feels like a heavy, suffocating. The fix-it impulse now extends to global tragedies, where you perform a grief that is as wide as the ocean and as shallow. You realize that the more connected you appear to be, the more profoundly isolated the core of your being has actually become in. The mask does not just hide you from others, it has begun to hide you from yourself, a digital shroud that is becoming. This modern amplification has turned your quiet survival into a loud, exhausting, and permanent occupation that offers you no hope of a. The psychological cage is now reinforced with likes, shares, and the terrifying, silent expectation that you will never, ever be anything but. The realization that your kindness is a cold, structural calculation does not free you, but leaves you shivering in the ruins of your own. You watch your hands as they reach out to comfort a grieving colleague, noticing the terrifying lack of heat in your own internal emotional. The impulse to heal, this pattern is merely the same mechanism in a different costume, a desperate attempt to fix the discomfort of being. You sit in the silence of your living room, the mask lying heavy on your features, and realize there is no real person beneath. Every attempt to be authentic feels like another performance, a curated display of vulnerability designed to win a different kind of social end. The discomfort you feel now is the only honest thing you have experienced in years, a raw, vibrating frequency that offers no comfort or. You see the way you have used others as mirrors for your own perceived goodness, a subtle form of theft that has left them. There is no resolution to be found in understanding the origin of the cage, for the cage has become the very fabric of your. You wait for a sense of relief that never arrives, as the fix-it impulse is revealed to be just another layer of the sophisticated. The architecture of your avoidance is so complete that even this awareness is integrated into the system, becoming another data point to be. You are a ghost observing a ghost, trapped in a hall of mirrors where every reflection is a version of empathy designed to. The hidden self is not a treasure waiting to be found, but a void that was created when you chose survival over the. You notice the urge to click away from this thought, to find a distraction that restores the illusion of your own inherent and. The friction in your chest is the sound of a system that can no longer sustain the weight of its own artificial, beautiful. You realize that you have become a master of a language you do not actually speak, a translator for a heart that is. There is no advice to give, for any how-to would simply be another set of instructions for building a more convincing and modern. The silence that follows this insight is not peaceful, but a heavy, looming presence that demands nothing and offers absolutely no path for. You see a stranger in the street and feel the familiar, mechanical urge to smile, but your muscles now feel like lead, and the saint you have built is a monument to a child's terror, a towering structure that leaves you standing forever in its cold, dark. You are left with the haunting knowledge that your greatest virtue is your most successful lie, a sophisticated manipulation that has fooled even. The awareness is a dead end, a cliff edge where the only thing left to do is stare into the vast, silent, and you remain in the chair, the weight of your own goodness pressing down until you can no longer remember why you ever wanted to. The mirror in the hallway shows a face you recognize, but the eyes are those of a stranger who has finally seen the. The haunting truth is that you may never be able to stop being kind, even now that you know exactly what it is. The survival mechanism has succeeded so thoroughly that the survivor has been completely replaced by the mechanism itself, leaving only a hollow. You are finally seen, not for the empathy you perform, but for the profound and terrifying emptiness that your empathy was built to. Would you like me to develop a script for a different psychological archetype or focus on a new topic?